Hello, LinkedIn community. Welcome to our LinkedIn Live. I am extremely excited today to have somebody that truly inspires me. We have Scott Brinker with us. Scott is from chiefmartech.com, HubSpot. Scott is very well known for creating these marketing landscape and technology that I love. Scott, I've been following your career way before I met you. For everybody, I speak a lot. But I love hearing you speak, Scott. Not only that you're knowledgeable and insightful, you're kind, you're an awesome person. I truly think our audience is up for a great treat today. Scott Brinker, welcome to our live, and please share with everybody a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Steve. It's you are a paragon of kindness yourself with that intro. So thank you very much. So I would say, boy, past 20 years of my life, it's been all Martech all the time, 24/7, 365. Sort of on one path of what I've done professionally is for many years, I ran a Martech startup myself, a company called Ion Interactive. That was originally in the business of being a Martech agency. Over time, we actually created a product for interactive content, and so grew that, including the adventures of integrating that product with other major Martech ecosystems. And then after that company was acquired, I ended up joining HubSpot to lead their platform ecosystem for all of the people who build wonderful Martech, sales tech, other kinds of tech stack integrations to the HubSpot platform. And so that's sort of like one path. And then in parallel to that, I've just always been fascinated by this collision between the world of technology and marketing that, boy, you go back 20 years, if you talk to your high school guidance counselor, they would have been on absolute opposite ends of the career spectrum. And obviously, in the digital world, these two have collided and entangled. And so about 16, 17 years ago, I started writing this blog, chiefmartech.com, to start to pick at that intersection and really how it was changing marketing, but not just like the technology of marketing, but has it affected like the organization of marketing, who's in marketing, the talent, the strategies we use. And so I've continued to write this blog and, things related to that here, over the past 17 years. And so, between what I do for my work and what I do for my passion project, it's all Martech all the time.
You know why I truly love engaging and interacting with you? You are such a humble person. Ladies and gentlemen, Scott Brinker is kind of known as the godfather of Martech. And what you've done in our space is nothing but miraculous. I've known you before I've known you. I've followed your work before I did. You wrote the best-selling book, Hacking Marketing, which everybody should read. You co-authored the New Automation Mindset, which I loved. What you do for HubSpot is amazing. Those maps that you create, can you take us into that? Because that's how I got to know you, Scott. Okay, the first time I got exposed to you is probably in 2013 or 12 with one of these Martech landscapes. So here in this image we're sharing here in the kind of in the landscape, we have, that's a picture of you young, right? I'm just joking. But
right in there was a joke in there, I assure you.
So can you tell us a little bit? I'll unshare this, but can you tell us how you got to do these incredible Martech landscape, and how much work do you put into it? Because to me, it seems incredible.
Yeah, so it started, the first one of these I officially produced was in 2011, and I've been writing my blog for a few years where one of the primary things I was trying to do was persuade executives in marketing, CMOs, that they probably needed to hire more technical people inside their organization because they were becoming increasingly dependent on these technologies to execute, the operations of what modern marketing was doing. And so I came up with the idea of like, all right, let me put on a chart here what all the different kinds of marketing technologies are, just as a way to like provide like exhibit A of like, seriously, look at how many different kinds of technologies, are likely in your organization today. And it kind of had the effect I was hoping it would, is people like, oh my goodness, the first one had like about 150 different Martech tools. Everyone's like, 150 Martech tools. just insane. Like, surely this will consolidate, right? And then, I went back to it a year later and it had like doubled, and then went back a couple years later and it like had tripled. And for a while there, it was actually, growing at an exponential rate from hundreds to then thousands of products. And in many ways, yeah, the graphic kind of took on a life of its own because, the expectation that that market was going to consolidate was a very reasonable expectation. Like everything we'd seen in software markets, historically, this is the current 2024
So, guys, this
version
is
that
the
is
current map. So
sustainable.
from 150, it grew to how much, Scott?
It's over 14,000 now. Yeah, these are little micro dots. It's kind of silly. You can actually, if you want, go to martechmap.com, and there's an interactive version of this that actually lets you zoom in and search and do cool things like that.
So
But yeah,
everybody,
it was really
please,
this.
go. So Scott, let everybody go to that image. There is so much information there. What we just shared it's very hard to see, but the amount of work, 14,000 different technologies that you characterize with what they do inside that landscape map, I find it so powerful. Sometimes it blows my mind. It's hard to even look at, but you gotta sparse it and look at things, and it's so much information. Can I share something with you?
Please.
We did a thing with our company. So we shared with all our employees, all our teams. We had an Excel list of all the different kinds of technology we were using, paying. It was literally hundreds. And our COO went and asked all our team, go through every application and tell us whether you use it, and if you do, either daily, weekly, monthly, because that was probably $100,000 a month or some insanity. So there's so much technology, and you really need to understand what's helpful and what's not. You really need to understand what's in your stack, and what you do helps so much. I truly, truly love it. Now, companies that want to understand what belongs in their tech stack and what's not, how do you suggest we start doing that? Because I think a lot of us either don't have enough or have way too much.
Yeah, probably most would say they feel they have way too much. And again, I think the thing I would say is, although I'm now somewhat known for that, graphic of all these tools, the truth is the tools are not really what to me is the most exciting thing about what's happening in technology and marketing, because tools are, the cliche goes, right? It's just, there's a hammer, there's a screwdriver, but, what are you building? And in many ways, I think the simplest MarTech stack you can have to do what you you need to do is better. And usually, so, the best thing people can do is say like, okay, let's focus on the core applications, the core capabilities that we know we need, and we want to get really good at it. Because a lot of these technologies, while they empower people to do wonderful things, they don't do the wonderful things for them, and there's a lot of craft, that people go into, like, how do I create a great digital experience? How do I create a good, like sequenced marketing campaign? Like, what sort of program do I use to engage people, through multiple channels? The software will enable you to execute on those ideas, but boy, it's up to you and your team to really develop, okay, what's the strategy of this? How do we, actually execute on that? How do we iterate and learn? I mean, one of the single best things about the digital world that we still don't fully take advantage of anywhere near as much as we could is the fact that it's just so malleable. I mean, the ability to like put something out and see how it performs and then quickly be able to iterate or experiment or A/B test. That's the real power of so much of this, because the Nobel Prize winner chemist Linus Pauling, was once asked, because he, I mean, super famous guy, had all these like breakthrough ideas, he brought to the world. And so a journalist was asking him once, like, well, how do you come up with so many of these like amazing breakthrough ideas? And his answer was, well, I come up with a whole bunch more that are kind of crap. I'm paraphrasing here, but like the best way to have a great idea is to be able to try a lot of ideas. And that's what this digital environment empowers us to do. And you don't necessarily need a lot of tools. It's even like just, picking a core marketing automation platform and really learning how to experiment with that can just unlock so much value.
I couldn't agree with you more. And technology is supposed to help us simplify things and not overcomplicate things, right? So we need to choose a tech stack that allows us not to just have a tech stack, but allows us to create what we want to create. And I think a lot of times we overcomplicate. A lot of times, simple is the best solution. And this is something I share, with my team all the time. You got to be clear on what your results are. For instance, we're doing this
Mhm.
live, right? This live is amazing to bring value to our community, but it's also designed to expand our community. And it's also designed to put us in people's heads as experts, right? So we got to make sure that we just don't do a live for a live, but everything has the meaning for it, what you're trying to achieve in the end. And people need to make sure that with technology, that still like the technology is there in order for you to get to the goal. Because I think like we fall in love with technologies at times and we just use stuff to use stuff. And that's something that I have an issue with. And it's all about not the tools, but like you said, what we're trying to achieve and how these tools allow us to reach more people, how these tools allow us
Yeah.
to get more of our message out there so we can do more good in the industry.
Yeah. I mean, I almost always, when people start asking me about like, hey, what tools, should I use? What should I have in my tech stack? I'm like, okay, set that question aside for a moment. Have you done a really good map of your customer journey? And I don't mean like your narrow customer journey, like, just in a particular marketing automation tool. No, I mean like as a true marketing strategist, stepping back and really trying to understand, how do people discover us? What are the jobs to be done that they're looking for? How do they progress through, from that discovery to like evaluation? How do they like to purchase? What happens after purchase? Because when you like really have clarity around that, and it's never static, it's always changing, there's always evolutions to it. But if you have clarity of that and you're asking yourself, okay, at each point along that journey, how do I deliver a great experience? How do I stand out, from my competitors? And once you start to get clarity about like what you want to do for that, then you're in a position to ask the question of, okay, what capabilities do I need? Technology being, one facet of that. What capabilities do I need to be able to execute on that? And again, if you can, whatever you can do with the simplest stack, the fewest number of tools, by all means, it's like the Occam's razor, of Martech. The simplest stack, is best. But the great thing about that very expansive Martech landscape, with all those innovations and all those startups and all those emerging technologies, is if for your particular business there is a particular thing somewhere in that journey you want to do that isn't a part of like your, primary, marketing platform, there's probably a tool out there that can actually help you test and experiment and deliver on that. And so you bring things in as point solutions when there is a very clear need, rather than saying like, oh, hey, I just, discovered this new hammer. I wonder what I can do with this.
One thing that I would love to get your opinion on. I feel like it's some technologies, especially with AI, people try to do too much with it. So people try to use a certain tool to do actually things that it wasn't really designed to do. What I found with me and our clients is you really got to set the right tools to do the right things. And if you ask some tool to do more than what it's capable and knows how to do, it's going to create more problems than solutions. Another thing that I want your point of view on is I truly believe, and I drive this to my team all the time, that perfection is the enemy of good. Okay, we can't be perfect, and if we try to get it perfect, we're just going to lose because we're never going to do it, and we're not going to do the things that make us grow. So can you share a little bit about those two questions? I'd love your point of view.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly with you that you got to be very careful. I mean, certainly with AI, but frankly, any technology. Um, what would be the way to phrase this? It's not a religious thing. Like you don't do this as a leap of faith. You don't like, hey, I use this technology, something wonderful will come from it. I think being skeptical about the technology is a really smart way to approach this. I don't mean cynical, because again, like one of the things marketers have to do, perhaps more than almost any other profession, in a business, is we have to be the ones that are sort of the change makers. We have to be the ones that have our ear to the ground of like, how are customer, behaviors and expectations changing? How's the environment in which we compete, and win those customers, how it's changing. And technology today drives a lot of those changes. I mean, it's not that we choose technology to like inflict it upon, our, audience. It's that our audience ends up like adopting, consumer technologies that change their behaviors, change their expectations, and we have to adapt to them. So skepticism good, cynicism probably ends up holding you back from things you should be paying more attention to. But I think, yeah, taking that approach of, AI is, let me say one other thing here about AI, because there's a difference between experimenting with some of this stuff in a safe space, in a sandbox, versus like, having a confidence in something that you're willing to basically let it loose out in production, and, directly impact your customers and your brand. One of the people I follow in the AI space is, this professor out of Wharton, Ethan Malik. Highly recommend, if people haven't looked at stuff, like every week he's experimenting with all these different tools. He's a business marketing professor at Wharton, and so a lot of the examples, he experiments with this, are in that domain. And his single biggest piece of advice is like, listen, you've got to just like play with this stuff, because it is going to change a lot of how business works and how we engage with our customers. A lot of it isn't prime time yet, but it's changing. And the only way you'll really come to understand what's possible here and be able to adapt, and really leverage these capabilities is got to be a bit hands-on. So I think like, yeah, having some hands-on experience in it's more of a safe sandbox, 100% behind that. Just having faith that you can deploy things, out to, your audience at large. Skepticism is probably the better.
100%.
Skepticism, the better part of valor or something.
I get so much to share about what you just said. So we do a lot with AI. And between you and I, Scott, I don't even know what I used to do before AI. AI has gotten such a huge part of almost every process that we do. I don't know what we did before then. But there is so much that you need to do with AI before you just deploy it towards like client-facing things. And AI is like hiring a person. The first day you hire a person, are you going to let him run a meeting with your directors? No. You got to train them. You got to test them. So 100%, an AI needs to be tested in a safe environment first. I have an analogy. I think I shared it with you before, but I'm not sure. To me, AI is kind of like the invention of gunpowder. And businesses are basically little armies or warlords, if you will. So we have a choice right now. We either say, no, we're so good with swords and bows and arrows, keep your gunpowder, we're really good. But next time we're going to face an army with guns, we're going to lose. Okay. Or we can say, okay, this is brand new to us. Let us see what it can do. Now, gunpowder is explosive, right? So if you don't know what you're doing, you may lose a finger. You may hurt yourself. So you got to practice. You got to play. And I love what you said. With AI, you got to play like a child. I play with AI all the time. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't book flights anymore. AI does it for me. And it does it so much better and faster than I could ever do. I play with my kids with AI. Like we create all kinds of fairy tales and stories, and I have my kids practice their creativity on AI.
Cool.
Of course, everything. Say that again? I couldn't.
No, I'm saying that's really cool. I love that.
I'll share some of the stories we did. They're so cool. But play, have fun. Go to somewhere, take a free demo, and create something. Okay, enjoy AI. So that's something that I think resonates with everybody. So after this, if you have not played with some AI tools, let's play. Can you share some AI tools that you find are fun to play with and have great uses?
Wow. Well, one of the challenges, so of course there's like the core LLMs, and whether it's with, ChatGPT that I haven't had a chance yet to start playing with their new model that they just released, it takes like a longer
It's
time to
incredible.
sort of think and reason. I can't wait. It's on my agenda for this weekend. That's how nerdy I am. I'm like, hey, Scott, what's your weekend plans? Well, there's that new ChatGPT model. Claude, I've also found from Anthropic, really fantastic, particularly some of the things there with like, artifacts. Joan, I mean, I think you should play with all of those things. But what's interesting is like there's so much AI that's happening at a level beyond that that's being embedded into applications. I mean, for instance, like with HubSpot, we've been releasing a whole bunch of AI powered capabilities over this past year, including like one of my favorite is this content remix capability. That given a particular piece of content, it can help like mix it for you for other formats and other channels. I love things like some of these digital avatars through companies like HeyGen and Vidyard. And again, it's ways to take content, that it's got, and I mean, not to say, hey, listen, I write a blog, so I still love, text content, long form text content. It's where I live, but the ability to like take content like that and be able to like materialize it into things that are like interactive videos. I mean, this is just a cool way to engage with people because the thing about audiences is they are generally not very homogenous. I mean, even if they're aligned around, a particular topic or a subject or an interest group, their preferences of, what sort of specific content resonates with them, how they like to consume it, there's a lot of variance. There's a lot of variance in generations on this, and so I think using some of these AI tools to just make it easier to like get your content and engagement, with different segments of your audience the way they prefer. Again, that's what I mean. It's not that it was impossible to do that before, but it was incredibly expensive. There were just a lot of barriers to that, for most of us, and to have those like barriers essentially be dropping to zero. It's just such a powerful shift in what we can do as marketers.
It's amazing. So I'm gonna share a little bit. I'm a geek like you. AI tools is what I do at nighttime, and my team, I think, are tired of me. Like I send them on our Slack at nighttime. Oh, this tool and that tool, and look what this does, and we should adopt the capabilities of that. So I'm exactly like you. I want to share with some people some generic tools that everybody I think should play with and should play with to see what they do better. So let's talk ChatGPT versus Claude, for instance, which you mentioned. I find that working these two models together makes so much more sense than working on them alone. And what do I mean by that? I do something on ChatGPT, then I have Claude analyze and improve it. I do something on Claude, I have ChatGPT analyze and improve it. So you can use these things together. I find that Claude does better personal writing, and I find that ChatGPT does better analyzing of websites, for instance. So I use them appropriately. Now, there are such cool products out there that you should try, like things like Midjourney, for instance. Scott, I cannot draw to save my life.
Yeah.
Okay, I cannot. But with Midjourney now, I feel like I'm an artist. All I got to do is use my imagination. I create art. There is this amazing tool I love called Runway ML. Okay, have you tried Runway ML?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love Runway. Yeah, awesome.
Amazing tool. Guys, go try it out. It's free. Okay, just go play. See what the capabilities of the technology out there. And then what's coming up is AI visually is so much better than humans. A lot of things are going to change. I think when we look at 2030, Scott, AI is going to be so much more dominant in so many different things. So how can people, companies, businesses, executive prepare themselves? Play like a kid, try them out. But what other advice do you have for people to really understand what type of technology is out there?
All right. Well, that's just the opening I needed to get even more nerdy in my talk. I think there are two fundamental changes that have already been happening in the Martech industry for years. They're accelerating and certainly are key to the success of what we're going to want to be able to do with AI. But they have the benefit that even outside of AI use cases, incredibly powerful, for a lot of our digital operations and capabilities today already. And that's basically this move towards a universal data layer. And it's a move towards increasingly having software that is truly open and composable with APIs. So for the, and again, apologies for anyone listening in who's like, okay, Scott, you're getting a little bit too techie here for me, but bear with me. I'll keep it at a high level. But like this idea of a universal data layer is, for years, every single different MarTech application you had its own little database, and it was effectively its own little silo. And we would do work for integrating products together where we'd, throw pieces of data, from one app to another. But a lot of that data didn't make it across all these different tools. It was a relatively narrow pipe. And this has been a source of frustration for many marketers, with their stacks for a long time. It's like, listen, I love these individual technologies. How do I get them to work better together? And then over these past few years, as the rise of things like cloud data warehouses and cloud data lakes have, just continued to grow, is increasingly almost every application in the tech stack is now getting to a place where they're pushing their data into cloud data warehouses. And vice versa, they're now also increasingly able to pull data from the cloud data warehouse into their application. And so what you're starting to get to is a place where, like, okay, yeah, I have this heterogeneity of all these different applications that I use for different things in my business. But below all of them, they share a common data layer where data can now start to pass, more easily both ways. And why this is so important for AI is because, listen, the generic LLMs that are trained on the web and, opening, just general purpose questions, hey, that's great. But when you start wanting to apply these technologies to be able to do things that are really trained on your business, being able to answer, customer questions that are, like a customer service question, or, hey, I've got a, top of funnel sales question. If you want agents to be able to answer that, you have to make sure you can feed them your data. And this is where now, starting to have that universal data layer, it becomes a mechanism that we use this today. Like, we can use this in automation, we can use it in analytics, we can use it in insights. I mean, there's definitely ways you harness that data today. But having that foundation is also setting you up that as the AI technologies continue to mature, the ability to feed the right data and make sure that data is high quality, into these different AI applications is going to be a huge leverage point for you. So that's the data side. I'll be faster in saying about APIs, which is, again, same thing, this idea that we've had a lot of tools that if you worked with the tool through its user interface, you could do whatever the tool, had the capability to do. But for a long time, many of these applications didn't have a lot of APIs that would say, like, oh, if I wanted to use some sort of automation technology to execute these things, some tools had more APIs than others, but it was very spiky, across the tech stack. But slowly but surely, more and more tech vendors have come to the realization that, like, we need open APIs to our application, because as people are leveraging, I mean, you don't even have to go to AI yet, just even like, work automation platforms, things like Workato or Zapier, it's a lot of leverage to be able to, like, have a trigger in one application, then sequence a series of decisions and actions across other applications. But that is exactly where we see this evolution of AI going. Is for a lot of the automations we used to do were very, you had to configure them manually. You had to be a little bit technical to, figure out how to do that sequencing. And one of the things that's very exciting about how some of these AI technologies are advancing is they are going to be smarter and smarter about how they can do those automations for us. And we don't have to be as technical ourselves in making requests, that then the AI is able to automate. But it only works if you actually have the APIs and the different software you're using, that those AI agents will be able to leverage. So anyway, universal data layer and, API composability in the tech stack. Those two things, they open up the universe for you.
I love that, and I have so much to say. But Anel here has a question. Data silos have been a long-standing source of frustration in marketing. With a push towards a common data layer, what are the key considerations for companies looking to break down these silos without sacrificing data security and compliance? Great question. Please, I'll go afterwards. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. I was simply going to say, like, it's funny, like, there's this thing of like the theory of constraints, of like, when you want to get something done, you like, you basically move forward as fast as you can until you hit a constraint. And then you figure out, like, okay, how do we solve that constraint? But inevitably, it wasn't the only constraint. Once you solve that one and you move along, you're like, oh, all right, this is the next constraint. The constraint we've had for a long time is it was just very hard to even get the data to flow. Like there wasn't really a clear, like, universal data layer. Most products didn't actually support, the ability to send that data, or be able to pull it in. And that is now what's changing, right? But now that we are getting past that constraint, we're realizing, all right, well, now the next constraint, frankly, is governance around this. And it's not just governance of like making sure, like, okay, we're tracking the right metadata with this data. So we understand what data is PII. We understand, like, where we're keeping certain data, like who has access to it, which applications have access to it. If we open up access to that data to a particular application, is it able to make sure, like, any of that metadata associated with, like, compliance requirements, so like, who is this associated with, so we can, support GDPR and things like that, and we're getting better at that quickly. But even this challenge of it's like the dog that catches the car. It's like, okay, well, we want to get all the data from across our company. And we're like, wow, this data is kind of messy. It's like not standardized. We have, like, different definitions for the same thing. And so this ability to create the organization and the governance and the, sort of catalog structure around that is where the current challenge is. But again, this is like what the cycle of technology is all about, is like everyone's become pretty aware that, okay, this is the challenge. How do we solve that? And some of that can really be accelerated with technologies, particularly AI, that's, very good at this. But also some of it's going to continue to, like, evolve in, like, the practices and the operations, like the management, practices we bring to how do we now operate in this kind of new data environment.
100%. So, Anil, everything Scott says is much smarter than anything I'm going to say. But the way we solve this for companies is every company that uses AI needs a secured knowledge base, just like Scott said. It needs a knowledge base that the AI can understand exactly what it can use, and it should be secured. Now, another thing that I want to talk about with AI is everybody's hating on the AI hallucination. Okay. AI hallucination, it's actually intelligence. Okay. But you can put parameters around that to make sure it doesn't hallucinate. So every AI tool we build for a company, we build a knowledge base for that company, we secure it, and then we let the AI know that any response the AI makes, we need to see at least 3 things of what it's based on from the knowledge base. So it cannot hallucinate, which, again, I have nothing against hallucinations. It's the only part of actual intelligence that is not copy paste. Love that the AI is trying to solve a problem. You just got to give it the guidelines that will solve your problem without getting burnt. And another thing that I want everybody to think of, I know you know this, but if you're just using a generic LLM, okay, you're basically giving your IP to that LLM, and that LLM will be trained by the IP that you're giving it. So you got to be careful of what you share and what you don't share with open, unsecured systems as well. There's a lot of things to think about here, but the most important thing is you can't use stuff off the shelf without the knowledge of what it is that you do, without your unique selling proposition, without your knowledge base. That is how you fail with AI. That is how sometimes you can go to jail with AI. So please, everybody, AI is here to stay. Play with it, but like Scott brilliantly said earlier, play with it in a secure environment first, okay? Before you do anything, go to the sandbox and see what you can do before you use it for anything else. So, Anil, I hope that was helpful for you. But every company that uses AI needs to secure a knowledge base that the AI can refer, rely on, and make sure that it creates a thing based on our rules and regulations. Does that make sense?
All good.
Thank you, sir. Coming from you, that's great. We have a couple more questions
And
here.
you're too kind.
Let's say 100% agree. Being able to customize the AI, training them to your own data as well as general market use is where marketers find their gold mine. Monica, 1,000,000% correct. Okay, you can't use a generic tool and expect it to do specific things. It's going to do generic things. If you want your AI to work for you, your AI needs to know you, well, and you need to test it and figure that out. How do you suggest marketers educate AIs with their knowledge, Scott?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, I think this is exactly what you're saying here. It's we have a tremendous amount of content and data inside our organizations, and the funny thing is, for so long when we've talked about data in the context of marketing, we've actually been thinking very much about like structured data, very common things like, oh, well, I have customer records and, I maybe have deals associated with them or purchases, and maybe if I'm more advanced, I might have had like the, like responses to particular campaigns, but it's all very structured data. Don't get me wrong, there's still a tremendous amount of value in there. But what we've largely ignored, because it really wasn't very easy to harness or decode, is all of this unstructured data. I mean, this is all this stuff like all of our documentation, all of our content, all of our history of all the customer service tickets, like anytime anyone had a question or an issue and how we got it resolved. The streams of behavioral data, like when people interact with our websites, when they interact with our digital products, mobile apps, like all of this tremendous amount of very much streaming or unstructured data from all but like the most sophisticated, marketing teams with very large, data teams supporting them. It just wasn't accessible to be able to harness this. And this is the thing that, this particular generative AI set of technologies is actually really, really good at being able to absorb and interpret and then be able to respond to things on this unstructured data, of being able to see the patterns and describe them, answer questions about them. I'm curious where we'll get with that slide that you brought up. And so, yeah, I think the unstructured data is absolutely where the gold mine for marketers to train this stuff. But as you were saying earlier, don't just like put it out there and be like, okay, world get wild with this, hope it gives us the right answers, to evaluate very carefully what data are we feeding into this. Are there any risks of like, not just data quality risks, but like, personal data that shouldn't, be incorporated into those models, and then being able to experiment and try them in a sandbox and really see how they behave and what they do. And then even being very, very watchful when you start to experiment with them out in public. That's the process that makes sense.
I love that. Now, I'm sharing with everybody something that you have shared with me and I've seen you talk about. So here you're talking about that there's 125,000 software company and 433,000 marketing agencies. And then I'll take to the next slide. And then you're basically asking, will more software company look like agencies? This has been profound information for me. Okay, I've kind of looked at what you've done here and I've built our model to be basically kind of a between an agency and a software company, because that's where I think the future is going. So you've inspired me with this. Do you mind sharing a little bit kind of what's on your mind when you talk about the amount of software companies, agencies, and how this is going to merge or how it's going to look like in the future? I'd love your view on this. I know you've inspired me with this.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, well, the genesis of this was as we saw the Martech landscape keep growing and more software companies. One of the things that, I mean, again, most people's reaction to it's like, oh, this is crazy. 14,000 like software companies, like how can we ever as marketers survive in a world where there's 14,000 software companies? And that was why I was starting to, poke on this research of like, okay, well, let's just look at this from the lens of like choice, and service. And to find, I mean, there's some very well published stats on like the number of marketing agencies in the world, and it's massive. It's around 433,000 most recent count. And again, like the software companies, the agencies, they're not all equal, right? I mean, you've obviously got like massive, public agencies that, are part of the, like the major holding companies, and then you go all the way down to these like single person shops that, do one thing, incredibly specialist, and the clients who work with them absolutely adore them. We see a lot of those same dynamics in software. Yeah. Yes, there's some very large software companies, public software companies, multi-billion-dollar companies. But you go all the way down the long tail, and you'll find these things where, like, it's like a couple people, who have found a particular innovation, and they've made a product that does that particularly well, and the people who use that product love it, And so, just thinking about the parallels to that, I was like, wow, I kind of wonder, like, is this where these things are headed? And part of that is also because of the economics around this. We kind of, one of the challenges the Martech software industry has had is was this bubble of VC investment. One of the reasons there were like so many Martech companies is because so many VCs invested so much money in thinking like, oh, all these companies will become, like the next Adobe, and don't get me wrong, some of them will.
Very few, very few.
But not all of them. Like the math doesn't work, that way. And a lot of it was like we'd always gotten to this mode of thinking like software companies were this very special creature, that they would always consolidate. They become these very large things, and they'd have these very high margins, And I just wonder if that business model is not the only business model for software anymore. In fact, a number of the examples you were talking about how you use AI in your business is you start to get to this place where like, okay, what is software versus what is a service? I mean, the very name of software and a service, is kind of sure giving us a hint, like we're kind of already like, headed in a direction. What most buyers want is they want outcomes, and if they turn to an agency to help them achieve that outcome, a consultant, a software tool, hey, listen, there's all varieties, of how they might achieve that outcome, but really it's the outcome that's driving them. And I just kind of have the sense here that, yes, there will continue to be big software companies in the world. There will continue to be big agencies in the world. But I think as you go down the long tail of both of these blending of like, what is a software? What is a service? At some level to the customer, I don't think it matters. They're just like, hey, I got a job to be done. Who can help me get this job done?
I could not agree with you more. And Wayne Gretzky, I think, said this. I'm always looking to where the puck is going, not where the puck is. I've run Wexler Marketing, a digital marketing agency, for almost 20 years now. I truly do not believe that the model I've ran it in the last 20 years will fit in 5 years. I truly don't believe so. So I completely agree that we need to hybridize these things, because now with AI, the game has changed so much. So it's almost like I need to look at my company, and that's basically why I started Viacry, because that's kind of where my mind was. So, but I need to take my agency and make it more of a hybrid of an agency and a software company in order to give the tools to the clients that I need. Now, we just developed a really cool tool inside our company, which basically took all the knowledge we had on marketing and how we do research, how we do writing, images, white papers, videos, all of that. And we basically educated an AI that we can give that tool to a company and allow a 5-person marketing team to punch like 50. Okay, because everything, everything is built in. So we know the methodology. If you don't know the methodology, don't mess with AI, okay? But if you understand the methodology and you can draw it on a whiteboard, that is exactly where AI can really supercharge what you're doing. And as you said, it must be fundamentally connected to a knowledge base that is secure. If not, Daniel, our head of sales, tells this thing that I love. It just creates really beautiful crap. And the problem is a lot of people share beautiful crap, and if you dive into it, you just get into the crap. So Scott, this has been amazing. I can't even believe we've been at it for 45 minutes, and I know you have some other things you want to do today as well. But please share with our audience how to reach you, how to reach, how to see the things that you do, and if you can, give 2 tips for our audience of how they can take what you've shared with them today and move forward with 2 actual steps they can take.
Okay. Well, let's see how to connect with me or see the things I do. So on the HubSpot side, of course, HubSpot.com. But actually, if you go to ecosystem.hubspot.com, you'll be able to see things like our app marketplace, where all the integration partners we work with are, and get a sense of the range of all the fun things you can integrate with HubSpot. So yeah, please check that out. And then for my blog, chiefmartech.com, I guess it's right there on the screen. Feel free to go visit chiefmartech.com. On LinkedIn, I am SJ Brinker, which I think a lot of you are already watching this on LinkedIn where you see that. So I don't know that I'm actually adding any net new information here. You're like, all right, well, that was all pretty obvious. So yeah, feel free to reach out. Would be happy to chat with you. And then as far as 2 concrete tips, I think the first thing I'd say is take a deep breath. This technology, marketing, Martech, it is always changing so fast, and almost everyone I meet feels behind. It's the inverse of that Lake Wobegon effect, where all the children are above average. Here it's you sort of feel like every marketer is below average on technology. We all are. The stuff is just changing so fast, and so you're probably not behind. This is we just can't learn it all. I don't know it all by any means. I assure you, every single week I am coming across things here. I'm like, wow, I had no idea that was possible. What the heck is that going to mean? And so the flip side of this is, first of all, give yourself a pass that, yeah, there's just more out there than any of us are ever going to wrap our heads around. But the other side is, the action you take on that is listen, what matters here is every single day, every single week, I'm going to take a step forward. I'm going to lean into my curiosity, and understand what these things do. Well, we were talking earlier about, Ethan Mollick, and his advocacy for, things like, hey, listen, if you aren't spending some time just playing with things like ChatGPT or Claude, you're really robbing yourself, of the opportunity to learn, what this is going to enable, what it already enables, but also start to get that framing for, what is going to be possible in a month, in a year. We don't even have to get to 2030. So I think those would be the 2 things. It's deep breath, you're in a good place, but do keep taking those steps forward to experiment, learn, have fun.
Love that. Keep learning, guys. And I'll mention a couple of things. These are very, very basic things. If you guys have not played with them, please do. Of course, ChatGPT, right? But not just ChatGPT. Create your own GPT. Understand what it is to create your own GPT. Number 2, Claude. They have a free model, okay? So it doesn't even cost you money. Check out the incredible things that you can do with Claude and compare it to ChatGPT. Midjourney, which we mentioned before. Great way to create art, create things. You can use it personally. You can use it for whatever it is that you want. Runway ML, another wonderful tool. And then if you guys have tools that you think are great, please put them in the comment. We would love to learn as well. Nobody in this industry is an expert in AI. I am in AI every day, and I can tell you, nobody's an expert. There are some pioneers, but nobody's an expert. It is going faster than we can even understand. I think even the AI experts are flabbergasted by things that are happening. I'll tell you a little story, and we'll finish with that. I hope I don't freak out too many people. But we did an experiment where we took a space, okay, and we attached AI to both a camera and a Wi-Fi, router. Okay. The AI then for a week watched the data on the camera and the Wi-Fi. Then we shut off the camera. Within probably 15 minutes, the AI could understand where the people were based on crossing the information of the Wi-Fi versus the camera. And now that they don't have a camera, they basically could tell you where people are in a room just by Wi-Fi. Understand the concept of this, ladies and gentlemen. There's so many things that are going to happen, but I'm going to end this here. Scott, You have been an inspiration in my life. Thank you for coming on to our show. Everybody, follow Scott. Look at his books. Look at the Martech landscape, HubSpot, HubSpot ecosystem. So many gems. Thank you. I will ask you to do this again when we have some time. And this has been amazing. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Scott. You've been such an amazing guest.
Thank you, Zeev. Incredible host. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye, everybody.